I'm going to demonstrate how to offload or read out the data from one of the HOBO, I think they're called HO8 4-channel data loggers. And you can see from the picture up above here what those look like. And that's the one that we use most out in the field. We've got a few of them with the serial port cable. Most of them are this, or I mean with the USB cable, but this is the old type that uses the serial port cable. And that's the cable that's plugged into the back of this Dell computer in the COM port and has a little 1/8" miniature phone jack at the end. First, on the bottom of the data logger, there's a plug that you take out with the screwdriver. It's got a rubber O-ring on it that helps keep it weather tight. Then plug in that, you look down in the bottom of it, and then just so you can see where your end of that port is, and plug that cable in. Alright, I've done that, and so we're ready to launch the software. If we go to Start, in all programs, we're looking for Onset Applications, and this software is the Boxcar Pro 4.3. That is the only data or software that will work with this. So we'll go to Logger and Readout. Hopefully we've got some data on here. I believe we do. We offloaded data earlier, but I think it probably launched and is continued offloading. It looks like it's getting data. You'll notice it's also reporting the status of the battery at the same time. The batteries will hold up a good long time. I wouldn't launch it into the field with less than 70% battery though. I've done that in the past and they've worked fine for months and months. But if it gets below 70%, I would replace it at that time. And Radio Shack has a good stock of these particular batteries. As long as it's taking, it must have a lot of data. And you'll notice too, right up here, this number is the serial number for the data logger. Each one of them have a unique serial number, so that would be one way to identify them. But as you'll see, that they each have a unique identifier, which you can program into it on the launch anyway. That becomes part of the Excel spreadsheet that you export. Well, while we're at it, I'm going to point out down here in this window, it's showing the latest data that has been downloaded. Okay, that one's finished. These are the DTF files are the HOBO software data files. It's its own data files. Normally, before we finish, we export them to Excel, which is easier for us to work with. Okay, this tells me to go ahead and unplug the cable, which I'm doing, and click on OK. And now it's prompting me to save the data. This was the name right here. This name is the name which we had programmed into this particular data logger when we launched it. And so it's using the same one to identify this data now. You could edit it, the name, before you save it, maybe put the date on it or something. And up here you're going to want to indicate where to store it. For now I'm going to put it in a temporary file in here. Let me make this a demo file. And here, before it saves it, it asks what data you want to store. We've got 1, 2, 3 different thermocouples connected to this, so it's got data for each of the 3. But it's asking whether you want to export data converted to Fahrenheit, and or centigrade. Normally we just do centigrade for each of the three thermocouples. Click OK. So that's been saved. This is it's compressed a little bit. Let me try to get this down where you can see it a little better. This is a chart that it generated displaying the data. Obviously, one of the thermocouples had a little trouble. And I've seen this data before, actually. It was recording just fine for a while, and then it stopped working for a couple of weeks, and then it started working again. This gives you a quick visual way to see whether your thermocouples were all working okay. Normally, if you got them all pretty much in the same location, they're all going to track really close to each other. This one had a problem, and it might have gotten pulled loose a little bit in the field, and then somehow it was able to regain contact. I suspect that's what happened. Let me shorten this again so you can see all this. Okay. So the data is saved now, and it shows it right here in the HOBO DTF file, but we want to export it to Excel. And it's simplest to just click right up here on this icon. Export Excel spreadsheet. That's all the data we want. I suppose you could select just any part of it, but we want all of it. And export. Again, the name of the file and the location. We'll put it back here. And save. That's saved. Now at this point you could we can close that out. You could go ahead and plug in another logger and go through the same process. Actually, what you can do, you could just plug in logger after logger after logger and offload the data, and then deal with saving it one file at a time. That works too. Probably simplest to just deal with one at a time. Offload it, save it, close it, move on to the next one. That's the process.